Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
Good morning. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I couldn't wait to get started. It's really every Saturday, it's a challenge to come up with something new. So we're going to come up with something really new today, cars. Well, in fact, new cars are so beautiful. Yesterday, I had the opportunity, the time, to actually watch a very thorough review of the 2020 mid-engine Corvette by Jay Leno. And it was really interesting because the gentleman from General Motors that he was speaking with, it was all on the cuff. You know, it wasn't a pre-staged, there was no script. And so I'll share my take on what happened. What I was most impressed with was, well, I'll tell you when I come back, because then you might not stay tuned. I want you to stay tuned. Hannah will take your calls at 888 Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part this morning by O'Reilly Auto Parts. When your car isn't stopping like it used to, the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts will help you find the brake parts and supplies that you need to fix your brakes right the first time. And now, for a limited time, folks, you can save 15% when you buy a set of Brake Best pads and 2 Brake Best rotors. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. Your calls at 888-227-2546 when I come back. A 2013 Honda Accord came in the shop running rough, stalling, and a check engine light. The vehicle had originally been repaired by another shop. After a thorough diagnosis, we found the vehicle was generating a bad signal from the crankshaft position sensor. This seemed odd as it had just recently been replaced, but the scope doesn't lie. A bad waveform signal needs to be fixed. Our solution? A new crankshaft position sensor from Motorrad. A longtime leader for vehicle thermostats and caps, Motorrad now offers engine management products that are engineered to meet and or exceed OEM specifications. They're designed to perform under severe operating conditions and are resistant to extreme heat. We made the change, and that fixed the car. Motorrad engine management products are manufactured in Tier 1 OEM facilities with top quality qualifications. They undergo comprehensive 100% in-line and end-of-line testing to ensure uncompromising quality. Learn more about Motorrad engine management products and other Motorrad solutions at Motorrad.com. In the Car Clinic service bay this week, a 2013 Ford Escape. The customer was having a hard time cranking the vehicle and had to jump-start the car several times in the weeks prior. They assumed it was a failing battery, but it turned out to be something else. After a close inspection, we found the alternator was supplying very low voltage to the system, which can never be fully charged. We charged the battery, tested it, and confirmed it was still good. We then replaced the alternator and performed a starting system test after verifying proper voltage from the alternator. The starter motor showed an abnormally high current draw, likely damaged from all the cranking of the vehicle with low voltage. Our solution? A new Motorcraft starter and alternator, so we could be sure to fix it right. Both parts were readily available at FordParts.com. Motorcraft parts offer OE-approved specifications and performance for all your Ford and Lincoln repairs. Motorcraft, right part, priced right, and you can learn more about Motorcraft starters, alternators, and other high-quality vehicle-specific parts at Motorcraft.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Rosie Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake and the day is mine to take. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started with this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thanks for tuning in, and just remember that every Saturday from 10 till noon, I come to you from the center of the automotive universe. Well, where is the center of the automotive universe? It just so happens that for the past 28 years, and still counting, going on 29 years, we come to you from Pensacola, Florida, actually. And our studio is a really state-of-the-art. It's quite beautiful. We erected this studio, 1996. We actually started the radio network in 1991, and I would go to local, in fact, our local affiliate is 1370 News Talk Radio and WCOA. And that station is a heritage station. It's been in operations for 85 years, and so everyone in Pensacola is well familiar with Bobby Likis Car Clinic. So we actually started on that program even before we started the network. I did a local broadcast. In fact, I was invited by a gentleman who's passed now. His name was Don Priest, a whale of a gentleman, and of course an icon. He was an odd duck. I mean, you know, and and anyone that knew him knew that he was odd because he was dead serious about broadcasting. And he came to me and he said, you know what I'd like for you to do? Now, this was years ago, folks. He said, I'd like for you to come out to WCOA's headquarters. Now, out to meant that there was a house out on the water. I'll say it was on the water on the bayou. And they had their headquarters there, and they had little individual rooms. Somebody bought this house. I guess the radio station did, and established that as their headquarters. That was years ago, and of course they moved into newer facilities later on, as all radio stations did, and at one time or other. And the bottom line is, I went out there, and he says, "Would you come out and just take calls maybe for a radio, for Car Talk?" So, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And I said, but it's just me? He said, well, no. He says, we're going to have a gentleman. His name was Gilbert, and his last name, and I forget his first name, but he was the service manager for Bob Salter Chevrolet, which was a local Chevrolet dealer, which has long since been sold to Sandy Sansing. And Sandy Sansing bought the Bob Salter Chevrolet from Bob Salter, who was an icon in this community, and then Sandy had since then purchased Chrysler and Ford dealerships and BMW dealerships and Mini Cooper dealerships, and so he's done really well. And what I admire about what Sansing has done is that he has promoted and supported this community since day one. And so I will have to say that that's true for folks, if you think about it, whether it's a Chevy store or a Mercedes store or any dealership, automotive dealership. And it's odd for me to talk about dealerships because I'm an independent service shop owner. But I say odd, it really is not, because foremost, and today I am the host of Bobby Likis Car Clinic, a nationally syndicated radio broadcast and global cast video cast. So we're available to you at your local AM, FM stations, and also at watchbobbylive.com. So the story goes, I went out with the service manager from Bob Salter Chevrolet to WCOA headquarters. And they put us in the front of a microphone. I've never been in front of a mic. Have you ever actually said a few words and recorded those and listened to what your voice sounds like? I mean, it does not sound anything like you think it does. And so that was kind of a shock to me. But it really didn't matter because the phones lit up. I mean, literally. And people had all kinds of questions. And so if their questions were related to new car warranty, or not necessarily just a Chevrolet, but to new car warranty, then Mr. Gilbert would answer the question. And then if it was related to maintenance or service or race cars, I built racing engines in that era, rear engine dragsters and Hemi engines and et cetera. So the bottom line it was very popular, and people loved to talk about cars. And of course, at that time, and this has been a long time ago, see, it was quite normal for any man to take his car to a service shop and tell the shop what was wrong with it. Yeah, my car hesitates, it needs a carburetor overhaul, or it needs a plug wires, or what have you. For that reason, I evolved. Being the owner of a service shop for 48 years, up until recently, I enjoy more so dealing with women than men, because for a long period of time, and this has since then passed now, but for a long period of time, you guys thought that you knew what was wrong with the car. I used to work on cars. I don't anymore because I don't have the tools and I don't have the time and what have you. Well, the bottom line is you don't do it because you don't know how to do it. Because I'll tell you, cars today are nothing like they were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And they don't make cars. They'll say they don't make cars the way they did. You're right. They make them a hell of a lot better. And so an automobile today is safer. In fact, I was having a conversation with. So let me finish the story first about the dealership. So it was unusual to have a service director from a new car franchise dealership, an OEM Chevrolet dealership, and this independent guy. Who are they? So. But he was a straight up fellow, as was Bob Salter, and so we started the program, and that's before we ever started really radio and Bobby Likis Car Clinic. And then about that time, there were people that had heard about the program in Mobile, and which Mobile, Alabama is 45 minutes from 45 minutes from Pensacola. And just across the state line. We're in Northwest Florida. When you think of Florida, oh, and by the way, our time is Central. We're so close to Alabama that we're not Eastern time. Everybody thinks, Jonathan, everybody thinks that Eastern time, So, of course, in the radio business, folks, there is no Central time. There's only two times. Pacific time, which is West Coast, and New York time, which is East Coast. So when I say we're coming to you from 10 till noon Eastern time, I better say that because Eastern time is the radio capital of the world, which is, Manhattan, New York City. And so we started out on that little, half-hour car talk program, and they've got a lot of calls about that, and they had more questions. And of course, as that's why I invite you to call, and that's how we evolved and into a network. Was through the invitation of a local icon. Don Priest invited me to come out and say, take the microphone and answer car questions. Well, and that was, I forget, in the early '80s, I guess. Or late '70s. Anyway, it was very interesting. And so today it's like, and at that time, folks, people would call in. Say, for instance, you had a 327 Chevrolet, a V8 pushrod Chevrolet. I've got 48,000 miles or 58,000 miles, and it misfires. Well, folks, there's two things it could be. Only two. Yeah, right. And here's what they were. The valve covers would leak oil on all Chevrolets. It's common. And then that oil would run down a spark plug wire, which was clipped onto a little attachment to keep it from, in alignment. They have these clips where the plug wires went from the distributor cap to over the valve cover and then down to the spark plugs. And oil would run off the valve covers down the wires, and then would cover the wire, and then it would short out the spark plug because oil would get on the spark plug and the voltage would jump the outside of the plug versus the inside. And then that, of course, that would mean the engine would run on 7 cylinders or 6, or depending on the oil leak. So how do you fix something like that? And this is where we really separated our operation from others. When I say others, those fast in, fast out places that, at that time, tune up $49.95, $69.95, and $89.95. What does that mean? 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder. That's how they came about. And that's what they did. They put points and condenser, took the cap off and screwed points and condenser and guessed at the gap of the points and condenser. and then they put a set of spark plugs. And if they had oil on the wire, they wiped the wire off, and there you went. And the car ran. Now, what was the proper way to fix that? Well, hey, you got to put a set of wires on it, because you can't undo the damage to jumping through the gap and burning a gap, and you have to replace the valve cover gaskets. So therein lies the difference between throwing a patch on something and doing the job right. And so early on, that's how we decided that we were going to do things. And then the deeper and longer we stayed in the automotive service industry, the more south, when I say south, the more south the automotive industry went. And I'll give you a little insight as to the industry then and how it is today, but you have to stick around. I'll be back.
Berryman B12 Chem Tool features HEST, or high-energy solvent technology. Using a combination of stronger solvents, HEST technology helps maximize one-tank cleanup of intake valves, fuel injectors, and combustion chambers. But don't take our word for it. Paul S. had a hot start problem on an 86 Mercure. The injectors were leaking fuel, which flooded the motor. Instead of replacing parts, Paul tried Berryman B12 Chem Tool. After just 2 cans, the car performed better, mileage improved, and the hot start problem went away. Learn more at berrymanproducts.com.
Did you know that birthday parties help build confidence in kids?
Yeah. Did you know that giving kids less sugar before bedtime helps them sleep better?
Oh, totally. Did you know that friendly kids have more friends?
Everybody knows that.
Hey, guys, did you know that most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
I didn't know that.
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right car seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This car repair spotlight brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. This week, a 2009 RX 350 Lexus came in with 85,000 miles and a loud noise in the front suspension. Now, a lot of noise-related repairs can be difficult to pinpoint, but this one was easy. Left front strut locked in the upright position, causing a banging noise even over the slightest bump. Solution? Replace all struts. We called our local O'Reilly Auto Parts professional and ordered 4 new strut assemblies, and also made the decision to buy Master Pro brand, which has performed really well for our previous repairs. We also performed our pre-repair brake fluid procedure while we had the wheels off to save our customer possible caliper issues later on. A 4-wheel alignment and balancing all tires made this 10-year-old Lexus drive as new. Our service team was happy, our customer was happier, and we know we made another great choice by collaborating with our local O'Reilly Auto Parts professional. That's why we make O'Reilly Auto Parts our first call. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
The airlines like to have sales. Summer getaway sales, holiday sales, winter sales. Truth is, at any moment, some airline somewhere is on sale with low fares to great destinations. Travelocity knows exactly what's going on, who's on sale, to where, and when, at over 700 airlines worldwide. We even have this nifty feature that lets you look at a calendar so that you can see exactly the days the great fares are available. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere. AOL keyword, travel.
Hun, guess my temperature.
It's 2 a.m. Go to sleep.
Come on, one guess.
98.
Higher.
Higher at 99.
You're getting warmer. Wait, I'm getting warmer.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
One more guess.
100.
Yes. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We're kind of having fun in the break with Hannah, who will take your calls at 888-227-2546. And also with Jonathan. Fabio is on a break today, our producer, and Jonathan is stepping in, doing a great job. Thank you, sir. He is the jack of all trades, and he's just done a fantastic job. And I'll say this, Jonathan, while I've got you on my mind, the things that you do every Saturday to help this broadcast be successful and follow through, I say the things are beyond what you're instructed to do. And so that means that you have initiative. And so, just for you to know, and you know this already, but you also, a nice enough gentleman not to brag about it. But the things that you do above and beyond the things that are called for you to do mean a lot to me and to this company. Because not only do you do your job, you actually look and oversee and make sure everybody else is doing theirs, or if you can help them do theirs. And that's much appreciated. So I never really told you that, especially on air, so I want to say it today. So you should talk to the boss and get a raise. Thank you very much. I can't believe I said that. Okay, I'll say anything almost. So the bottom line is we started on this radio network, started on one little station in Pensacola, Florida, and then I was invited to drive over to Mobile, Alabama, and so I would go over there once a month with the number one talk show host on I think it's BRC. Well, no, I don't think it was. It was Channel 5 News, and the Gideon was his name, started it, and KRG, Kenneth R. Giddings, yes, Kenneth R. Giddings, and this was a gentleman who actually built the KRG television, which is the NBC affiliate, and built the building and the studios, and and he was a self-made engineer and schooling, and when I say self-made millionaire and just a really neat guy, and he was responsible for the marketing of the NBC there in Mobile. So it was interesting because I'd go over there once a month, and here was a problem that I found. I found that people would call me over there, and so I was more well known over there than I was in Pensacola because I wasn't on the radio here. But I was there once a month, and it was the largest station. Plus, you could hear it and hear, whereas you couldn't hear Pensacola over there. So the bottom line, I had people that wanted to bring their cars to Pensacola for me to work on. And I said, no, you don't do that. Well, what do you mean? You know what you're talking about, and I don't know anybody over here that I would trust because I like the way you sound. The folks, that's the upside of hosting a broadcast. For a business, because I'm in the business. So, but here was my answer to that. You really have to, and folks, this is for you, and I see that Roger's calling from New York, and so I'll take Roger's call in just a minute, but Roger, this is for you as well. You should always create and search for a service provider in your own town, in your own neighborhood, or at least within 3 to 5 miles of your neighborhood or whatever, or 10 if it has to be, because you can't take your car out of town to have it serviced, even if you wanted to, or you shouldn't. You can, because you're going to have small things that come up. So you can't expect to pop into Tom, Dick, and Harry or Harry's garage and have them do the minor problems, and then if you have a major problem, they're not going to know your car because you don't have any rapport, and they don't have any records, no health records of your car. And so I discouraged people, and I didn't do a really great job because lo and behold, there was a couple from North Carolina that tunes in, and we'll fast forward now from the 80s to the 19s, which is where we are almost out. The 19s today, and I actually had this year a couple that drove 600 miles from North Carolina. You remember that, Jonathan? To have a vehicle inspection performed on their Avalanche, and it was really. I said, well, can't you take it there in North Carolina, in your town? No, we don't trust anybody in our town. We're going to bring it to you. And I said, well, stay a couple of days so you can go to the beach. So they did, and it was a great event, and we're good friends now. So now I'm going to take you to, speaking of friends, to New York and take a call from Roger. Roger, thanks for holding. Good morning. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic, coming to you from the center of the automotive universe.
Hello, my friend. Can you hear me okay?
I got you, man, loud and clear.
Hey, you touched a couple memories with me this morning. You started off with the saying "a weird duck," and that's It's something my grandma used to say, and she always said it when she saw an odd character.
Yeah.
And the thing is, well, Bobby, I've been looking at ducks, and I've always been looking for a weird one, but they all look like ducks to me. So
well,
I don't know.
To that end, my grandfather was Scotch-Irish on my mother's side. My grandfather was Greek on my father's side. And my grandfather, on the Scotch-Irish grandfather, I would introduce him to my friends. Now, this is back in Birmingham, Alabama, which is where I was originally reared. And then I moved to Chicago. That was a culture shock. And then I moved to Pensacola. But the bottom line is, I would take, let's say, Bill. Bill Burnett was who's passed now, was my best friend. And I would take him in to see my pa, who was my grandfather. And his name was Weaver, Doc Weaver. It wasn't a doctor, but his first name was Doc. And he had 8 children. My mom had 4 sisters and 3 brothers. And so depending on the mood of this Scotch-Irishman, I would go in and my friend, who would be kind of timid and say, "Hey, Mr. Weaver, how you doing?" And if my grandfather felt okay, he would say, "Hi, Bill." And if he wasn't, he'd say, "Hmm." That's all. I mean, he would say, and his favorite saying was, "I want peace and quiet and damn little of that." And I'll never forget that as long as I live. And then we would go over to I don't know why I'm telling all this. We would go over every Sunday to my grandmother's house to eat. And here's what we had. We had roast beef. And because he had such a big family, the table was 12, and there was more food than I mean, it was unbelievable, because that's what my grandmother and the daughter stayed in the kitchen all the time, literally, and preparing. And we would have roast beef and mashed potatoes with gravy and string beans and biscuits and what have you, and iced tea, and it was, it was unbelievable. And I have to tell this story because I know that a lot of women that are tuned in will appreciate this. A gravy bowl that you pick up also has a little dish that it sits in, so that when the gravy spills, it comes in the dish, right? Well, they made. I picked up the gravy bowl, and the dish came with it, And I always thought that whatever was in that gravy caused that dish bowl to stick to the little. You talk about funny, and it was only 30 years later, I guess, or I don't know, longer, that I realized it was made that way. I always thought that my grandmother's gravy caused that dishes to stick together. Is that weird, or is that weird? Now that's a strange duck for you.
Well, Bobby, again, you brought back some memories, because I don't think my grandmother ever sat down and had a dinner with us. She was always
in the kitchen,
up taking care of people and everything. What do you want? You want this? Serving and all that. And I don't think she ever sat down and had a dinner with us. But the other thing you brought up this morning was that 327. I think that's probably one of the greatest engines that was ever developed. I know the 350 gets a lot of credit nowadays and everything else, but that 327. I was a young man growing up, and the 327 and the Corvettes, and back then when the muscle cars, I just love that engine. I think it's kind of underrated in the press for what it could do. I mean, you could bore that one a little bit, everything else, and just a great engine.
They were, and
it's just a beautiful sound once you get one tuned up right. I just love it.
And then in that era, Roger, we'll all remember Zora, Arcus, Duntov, of course, and the Duntov cam. And of course, I mentioned at the start of the show that I'd watched a video yesterday from Jay Leno and the exec from General Motors on the 2020 Corvette. And in the 60s now, the designers at Corvette wanted a mid-engine car. And of course, they said that'll never happen. And so then fast forward to the 2020 mid-engine Corvette, and the bean counter says, well, are you going to make the regular Corvette, at the $50,000 or $60,000 unit, and then make a mid-engine Corvette to compete with the Ferraris that cost $200,000 plus, and charge 125 like they did the Viper, which put the Viper under the table. And General Motors says, no, we're gonna make all Corvettes mid-engine, and they did. And I was really, it was an interesting story. What I really liked specifically, I appreciated about it, was the fact that Jay and the other gentleman, and I didn't get his name, but Jay and the other gentleman were talking about the fact that it was a convertible hardtop, and it was the first one that they had rolled off the assembly line, and Jay drove it. And here you've got everything in the rear of the car, including the engine and the transmission and the differential. And then you've got a room on top of that engine for the retractable hardtop that folds. And then behind that, Roger, there's a storage place where you can put golf bags in the back, all in the back. And so GM says, well, we want to make sure that this car is not only just a Sunday driver. We want to make sure that people can drive it and enjoy it every day. It's a driver. And so you don't think of a mid-engine Ferrari as a driver. You think of something that you keep in the garage and you covet it, and then on the perfect day, when you're feeling brave that nobody's going to run into you, you take it out and you take it for a spin, and ooh and ah and all those sorts of things. That's what car guys do, and what have you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Listen, I know very well. To interject a little bit. When my father passed away, he left us a little bit of money, and he was a Chevy guy, and he was Scottish, so he was cheap.
Hey, well, there's some music, Roger. Let me ask you to stay right there, and folks, stay right there, because I want to hear about the Scottish guy. Don't go away. Roger and I will be back.
A 2015 Ford Escape recently came into the shop, 120,000 miles and going strong, but it was starting to hesitate, and the customer also complained of declining fuel economy. This 2-liter turbocharged engine is GDI, or gas direct injection, and special maintenance is needed in certain areas, particularly the fuel system. We suspected carbon buildup, and sure enough, using a borescope through the spark plug hole, there was definite evidence of carbon buildup. GDI engines are different in the way they inject fuel, and it can create some issues with repair and maintenance. That's why it's important to use products rated for GDI, like Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kit. Each step of the process is designed with GDI engines in mind. We use the kit, and after 2 weeks on the road, the car is performing noticeably better, and MPG has improved a bit. Learn more about Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kit and other great products at berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but morning's knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes.
Technology moves at the speed of innovation, and today, that's lightning fast. So when you get your hands on the latest tech, don't forget to do the right thing with your old devices. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old tech device as easy as purchasing new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the responsible recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find lots of tips to simplify your recycling, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Television sets, video game consoles, smartphones, tablets, they're all recyclable. Don't let them clog up your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org. You're sharp enough to get the latest tech tools into your home. Now be responsible enough to get your old devices to the recycler. That's greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic, brought to you in part by Omnicraft. Folks, if you drive a non-Ford or Lincoln automobile and you need OEM parts, you should consider Omnicraft. That's backed by a limited warranty that includes limited labor costs and no commercial exceptions. You can choose Omnicraft for all your non-Ford vehicle repairs. You can learn more at omnicraftautoparts.com, and you can see your seller for the limited warranty details. That's omnicraftautoparts.com. Okay, we're talking with Roger from New York. A little bit about 327 Chevrolets, but Roger, you've got on the screen, Hannah says an 05 Chevrolet brake/gas lines. Let's talk about your current car and how may I help you?
Yes, sir. Well, I don't know if there's a trend of the brake lines and gas lines rusting out, but I've got to get them both replaced. I don't know if that's a common thing or not, and I'm just looking at how much that's going to end up costing, because right now I've got to get them done. I've looked up underneath and they're just they're hanging on by a thread.
Well, I'm really glad that you called me before you started this project or before you had a local service shop start this product. And you can write this name down. That they are not a sponsor. They're not paying me to tell you to use their product, but we use their product, and it's called Dorman, D-O-R-M-A-N. And Dorman Products makes brake line kits for specific applications, including your 05 Chevrolet. And you can buy every OE, like factory OE brake line for your automobile. And in fact, we did a video. Tommy Bernardino, who is one of our ASC certified technicians. In fact, he only has 2 more to go. He has 6 under the belt, and he'll be a master, which is 8 certifications. But we had a vehicle. It wasn't a Florida car. It came from, I don't know, Baltimore or somewhere. But we're a military town here with Naval Air Station, so we got a lot of transit people that stay, come and stay here for a while. And this particular car was so rusted out. I mean, it was really, it needed more than brake lines, but that's the reason it came to us, because it had no brakes. And he took the brake lines off, and I was really amazed in the box. And imagine a box that's the size of, that would hold golf clubs. So, let's just say a small golf club bag, but it's a regular shipping box. So you open that box, and you have every brake line that's already preformed and specifically linked and tagged with left front wheel, right front wheel, center body section, rear. Every one of those brake lines was tagged, and lo and behold, here's one that was that went from the front of the car, Roger, to the back of the car, and I forget what it was, an SUV of some kind, and it went from the front to the back of the car. Well, you can't make a box and ship a brake line. I mean, it's kind of like taking a toothpick and putting it in a shoebox, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
And so this extended length brake line that went from the front ABS to the rear axle housing area was made in one piece, and then it was bent gently, and then on the bend, maybe a 20-inch area, or say a curve, and where the curve was, it says grab here to straighten. So you put one hand on one tag and the other one, and you straightened it out at that particular area. And so it ended up being straight, as straight as you need be. And then one end would have a curve going to the ABS unit, and whether it be an S curve or a little curly Q. I was amazed. And then specifically under the master cylinder, and Roger, you probably looked at your master cylinder. They coil the brake lines.
Yes, sir. Yep. I'm looking at all that.
Yeah, and the reason they coil the lines is because every time you step on the brake pedal, the firewall gives a little bit, so it's imperceivable to you because you can't look at this master cylinder and go inside the car and step on the brake pedal. But if you were to do that and have somebody, pushing on the brake pedal, you'll see the master cylinder moves because you're putting a lot of pressure. Yeah, it's going to move. So over time, if you had a rigid line going to the body and to the master cylinder, and you kept moving them out, it would break. And so these lines are factory made, and there's one thing too that really we never did. I say never. I won't say never. Rarely, if ever, did we use sticks. And a stick is where you go to a parts store and you buy a 3-foot section or a 4-foot section or a 2-foot section, and you get a unions and you put them together, and you get a bender, a little handheld mandrel, and you bend your own lines. That's old school, and let's face it, the more connections you have in any particular,
the more points you have for failure.
Exactly.
More points for failure.
And to that
end,
end,
that's what I was looking at, Bobby.
Yeah.
I was looking at, can I snake this whole thing up under my truck? That's kind of because you're looking at the whole line,
right?
And I'm like, man, that's from the back all the way to the front. Can I snake it up under my truck?
You can.
Without having to, do sections, because like I said, sections, you get more points for failure.
More points, exactly right. And to that end, when you look at the wiring harness of a car, given, today the electronics of a car are so sophisticated, but the electronics use small wires to reduce the weight of the vehicle, and those wires carry a 5-volt reference signal. So they're a little small, like a fiber optic. They're really small wires, and that's to reduce the weight. But everywhere you have a connector, a male-female connector, and we had one, I talked about it, on 2 shows ago. We had a vehicle in here, a Lexus, and we had unplugged the engine management computer to get to the thermostat and the wires that were going across the front of the motor. And when Johnny plugged this 92-pin connector back in, he bent one of the little the male prongs, and the male prong, Roger, was there were 92 pins that you could see them down in there. They were maybe 250 thousandths, a quarter-inch long, and they were the size of a pin, a small pin, not even a safety pin. And
yes, sir, I know what you're talking about exactly. Sometimes you look at the end of one of those and it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly. How would you ever? So what he did, he accidentally, after he put the wires back together, and wouldn't you know? In fact, I did a little factoid on this and asked for some what was the odds. The car came in overheating and it was low in coolant, so we put a water pump. We also, and that fixed the leak, but we also put a thermostat in the vehicle for obvious reasons, because the thermostat had been bruised and damaged from the overheating engine because it was splashed with water and then coolant, and then it's thermal shock is what that's called. And a thermal shock is where you got an engine that part, like a cylinder head or a thermostat, and you got low coolant, and the coolant boils, and then boom, it explodes like a geyser. And when it does, it thermal shocks. It takes a part of the engine that's maybe 150 or 200 degrees and throws it at 400 degrees, and so that thermal shocks and it damages the thermostat. So anyway, we put a thermostat. So that fixed the overheating, but the gauge didn't work and the check engine light was on. And this wasn't the problem before. The gauge certainly worked. It would certainly show hot. That's how the driver brought it in. So Johnny, I walked over to Johnny and I said, what's up here? And he says, this one's got me, man. He said, this doesn't happen before I worked on it. I said, tell me what you did. I disconnected this. I said, okay. And so the bottom line, he only had to disconnect 3 connectors to move the loom out of the way of the front of the engine, but he also had to disconnect the main connector at the ECU and the computer.
Yep.
And it had 2 plugs, one of which had 92 pins. So I said, well, let's look.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I pulled the easy one out first, which is like the small one, and looked, and it looks okay to me. And then I said, well, then we talked another 5 minutes, and then I said, well, wait a minute now, I didn't look at the big one. So I pulled the big one out, and there's a banjo where you lift up on the balun, you know, where you pull up on the hasp, and as you pull up on the hasp, that automatically pushes the coupling out so that you don't physically guide it in. It has tracks in it, you know. So obviously, obviously he did something wrong putting it back together. And so I pulled it out. I looked down.
Bobby, another tip there that I've done the connectors before too, and every time I pull one apart, I got a little bit of contact cleaner that I spray in there, and because especially if you're dealing with an older car,
yeah, exactly.
You know, those things can get a little corrosion on them or whatever, and you spray a little contact cleaner in there and put them. Here, I don't know if this is a good tip or not, but I put them back together and I pull them apart, put them back together, and put them. You know, the contacts.
Exactly,
just to rub them a little bit.
You are right. To distribute, yes, yeah, exactly. To lubricate the male-female part. And I have fixed, in the older days, many automobiles that had phantom problems. This is long before we have the great connections that we have today. But let me finish the story on this one. So I looked down in at the 92 pins, and of course you can't see the pins. You can just see the row of little things sticking up, and there was one shiny, and there was one that was really just absolutely bent sideways, and you could see it. And I said, well, you shouldn't be able to see that. And sure enough, we took the computer out and went into the brake room and put it on a little shop cloth, and then I took a little ice pick, a little ice pick type, like dentists use for your teeth. And in fact, that's what we do have those, and pulled it up, and then I took a pair of very thin needle nose pliers while Johnny held the box, and I influenced that pin and straightened that pin, and then I said, well, it's almost perfect, and straightened it, and then I went back and plugged it into the plug, and then I unplugged the plug again, and Johnny says, what are you doing? I said, I want to see if I bent it. Going back to the if I broke it, and so it was okay, and that fixed the problem. But anyway, on your Chevrolet.
Well, my friend, I congratulate you, because I broke those pins doing the same thing, just trying to, move them gently back up into their position.
I know.
And once you get them past that, 45-degree angle or whatever, sometimes they just pop off.
And this one was crushed flat. It was crushed flat, and one more thing. Which is really interesting. Wouldn't you know, the very pin that actually, of 92 pins, the very pin that was damaged when he plugged it back together was for the temperature gauge, and that was the system he was working on. And so the odds, and according to me, Jonathan, we talked about the odds, and I said, what are the odds? 1 in 92. It's 1 in 92 times 1 in 92, and it was 8,000 and something to 1. And if some math majors out there, maybe you can do the odds. What are the odds of damaging accidentally the very pin that has to do with the system that you're working on when it was not an electronic problem at all? It was a mechanical problem. Anyway, nice talking with you, and I always love to hear from New York, and hats off to you didn't tell the story about, so you have to call me next hour. You didn't tell me the story about your grandfather.
Yeah. No, my father, when he passed away, was Corvette, Bobby. But hey, you spent way too much time with me.
I know.
I appreciate it. And hey, I think we're all weird ducks in a way.
Yeah,
so,
we are unique. I have a saying about somebody. I'll tell my wife, well, that was a unique guy. She says, Bobby, everybody's unique. I said,
yes,
but he's really unique.
That's the thing. It sounds like you're kind of like me. You've got an incredibly smart wife, and
I do.
We are all weird ducks in a big world.
Yeah.
So
okay, my friend.
Thank you for your time, my friend.
Thank you as well. Happy New Year to you. Well, that's right. Happy New Year. It's going to be. Let's see. It'll be another year. Gosh, folks, it's going to be another year before you. Here and I talk again. I can't believe that. That is absolutely amazing. Let's go to Texas. Dean from Texas with a 05 Hyundai.
Good morning, Dean. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Oh, hey. Hey, I guess it didn't come through. It's a 2018 Ford Transit 350 HD.
Wow, I've got an 05 Hyundai here. A 2014 Ford Transit?
No, 18.
2000 Ford Transit 18. Well, you shouldn't have any problem with a 2000 Ford Transit 18. Now, let me say this, Dean. We are coming up on the end of this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. So I'm probably going to, and it's probably wise if you and I didn't really get that deeply involved in your issue, if you don't mind.
Sure. Not at all.
Okay, so I'm going to put you back on hold. And then when we come back and you got no engine code, but you got a warning light come on, and I'll promise you you're going to be first out on the second hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. So let's Jonathan, put Dean back on hold. And Dean, thank you so much for your patience. And folks, for those of you who really may or may not care about cars, you know, this program is really, as you have witnessed this first hour, it's not about cars, it's about people. In fact, automotive repair, and just for those of you in the business out there, whether you're franchised, manufacturing, franchise dealerships, or independent service centers, or Bosch Auto Service Centers, or Napa Auto Service Centers, or Meineke, or Goodyear, or whatever, you are not in the auto repair business. You're in the people business. So with that, I'll see you next hour. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Folks, you never want to get surprised by a dead battery. A vehicle's original battery generally lasts about 3 to 5 years, but many fail long before then. Next time you're in for an oil service, have the technician test your battery. Better now than too late. Today's vehicles have start-stop systems, navigation, radio amplifiers, electric fuel pumps, 25 or more onboard computer modules, and serious electronic controls that depend on a strong, fully charged battery. Make sure the car you're driving has a healthy battery. Make yourself a note. Go to autobatteries.com and see for yourself how a battery can keep you safely driving down the road or put you on the side, just like that. At autobatteries.com, you'll see battery technology, battery testing, how to choose the battery, how to jumpstart your battery, and more about AGM batteries, my choice. I'm not here to make you a battery expert, rather to help you better understand why a reliable battery is essential for your road trips. Go to autobatteries.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
If you're familiar with the Kulseford section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the Kulseford section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with, and by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition lemulls. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's Vehicle Protection Program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
Well, here we go again, another hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. This will be our second hour of the day. Every Saturday from 10 till noon Eastern Time, we come to you through your local AM and or FM station, and also globally, we're watchable video cast in real time at watchbobbylive.com. And it's really interesting. The first hour conversation I had, actually I spent a lot of time with him, and so I'll try not to do that with one individual so we can get more calls in. Hannah will take your calls at 888-227-2546. And when I come back from the upcoming commercial break, we're going to talk with Dean in Texas, who's got a 2018 Ford Transit HD. And we're going to find out what's on his mind, and that might spur some calls from you and what's a problem that you have, not necessarily with a Ford, but with any automobile or any questions. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part by K-Seal, a one-step pour-in solution designed to stop coolant leaks and help prevent future leaks. You can find K-Seal at fine part stores nationwide like AutoZone. Don't just seal your cooling system, K-Seal it. 888-227-2546 is the number for you to call. Anything from a 327 Chevrolet to a 2020 mid-engine Corvette. Yeah, I'll talk about that as well. And Dean, when I come back. Time for another edition of Cooling System Q&A brought to you by Motorrad, your first choice for vehicle thermostats and caps. Why is the thermostat so important? Cooling system regulates engine temperature and helps prevent overheating. While it's comprised of several components, the thermostat plays a critical role with efficient cooling system operation. It must regulate coolant flow properly to maintain a specific engine operating temperature in addition to providing quick warm-up. Motorrad's new stainless steel thermal element UltraStat is unmatched for corrosion resistance. Its revolutionary Reax wax mixture provides quicker reaction time. The UltraStat also features bilinear valve technology, which prevents thermal shock to cooling system components, gradually increasing coolant flow versus instant maximum flow found in traditional thermostats. The UltraStat precisely controls engine temperature to ensure the lowest emission standards, maximum fuel efficiency, and terrific interior cabin comfort. The Motorrad UltraStat line is the perfect thermostat upgrade option with coverage for over 160 million vehicles on the road today. Motorrad, leading the way in coverage and service. Car repairs get expensive, and most of us don't have the money for them. That's where brands like K-Seal can really be a lifesaver. If you've had a car with a coolant leak, you know how expensive it can be. It's not usually the newer, higher-dollar vehicles that have leaks. It's the older vehicles, say $900 to $2,000 range, the cars we depend on for daily transportation and other vital tasks. If you're experiencing a coolant leak and the repair cost exceeds the value of your car, you don't necessarily have to take your car off the road. Try using K-Seal. We've seen our share of these in our shop where, before K-Seal, once a diagnosis was made of a leaking intake gasket, radiator, heater core, or head gasket, the car was sent for recycling and the owner had to purchase another. Before giving it up, try K-Seal. It's a pour-in solution that just may allow you to keep your car longer without spending more on repairs than the car is worth. Find K-Seal at automotive retailers everywhere like AutoZone and get more information at kseal.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at LendingTree.com.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started with this hour, brought to you in part by the Car Care Council, our partners. And if you're traveling this holiday season, remember to follow the 3 P's of car care: prepare, prevent, and plan, to save money and avoid breakdowns. How cool is that? You can learn more at carcare.org. Okay, your calls. Miss Hannah will take your calls and place you in the queue. Let's get started. I know that toward the end of the second hour, we get busier and busier, so let's kick it off real quickly here. 888-227-2546. And first, we're going to go to Dean in Texas. Dean, thank you so much for your patience and for holding. I will turn the mic to you now. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Hey. All right, so what's going on is I'm getting the engine power is reduced to lower temperature. I'm getting that message on the dash. And so it's going into that about once a week. There's no engine light or anything. The temperature gauge stays right in the center of the gauge there. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on it. The dealer had it for 2 weeks, and of course it didn't do it for them.
Yeah. Well, here's a question that I had, because I was going to ask you, if the dealer had read the codes in it, and there has to be, if that light comes on, reduced power. Reduced power normally is analogous to what was originally called years ago limp home mode. In other words, there's so many, and I thought about this many times, all the millions, billions of, actually, Americans drive 5 billion, with a B, miles a day. The roads, the transportation, 5 billion miles a day, every day. And of all those ones and O's and zeros that are controlling the operations of the engine, like, what if they fail? I mean, even like power companies fail, and we have blackouts, albeit they're backups, but it usually takes about 3 to 6 seconds before your lights come back on. And just for you to know, folks, if you lose your lights in your home, your power, and it goes beyond 6 to 8 seconds, then you may be out for a lengthy time, because the transfer from no power to backup power should require no more than 6 seconds. But having said that, so your car, your transit, your vehicle, your commercial vehicle, has a backup, and it's called limp home mode, and that's what is being triggered by some electronic system in the automobile, or some malfunction, or it may not be a malfunction of a component. And Dean, here's where the problem comes in with your dealer and with any service provider, given the sophistication of that vehicle. There are so many circuits, and if any one of those circuits is not working correctly, and especially if it has to do with the engine, which is almost everything, everything, timing and shifting and idle speed and throttle, controls and temperature controls. I mean, gosh, everything. So the computer is seeing something it doesn't like, or it's not getting a signal that it expects to get and is programmed to get. And so during that time, you get this light, reduced power, which is the computer's way to say, hey, I've got a problem here, I've got an issue here, and it's holding up his hand and asking you to take it in. Now, you said that the dealer kept it for an X period of time, and they never witnessed it. But what I didn't hear from you, and what you need to know from the dealer, is what trouble codes were in the computer, because even if the check engine light never came on, or even if it's never come on, and folks, if you're any car you're driving and your check engine light doesn't come on, there are still trouble codes that are within the system that the system accumulates and stores. So you've got, let's say you got 100 kids in a classroom. Let's say you have 50 kids in a classroom, and you got one noisemaker.
and you know, and he's, you know, he or she, I say he because I'm a guy, so, and he doesn't, little Bobby doesn't do right, and he, you know, he makes noise, or he's pulling the girl's hair in front of him, or whatever, the bottom line. Finally, after the teacher has enough of that, she calls Bobby up to the front of the class, or puts him in the coat room, or puts him out of the class and gives him time out. But there has to be some threshold, because, you know, I'm gonna, you know, make myself a fool of myself maybe 2 or 3 times, and then when she calls me on the carpet, I'm gonna behave. During that time, your car sees the same little bobbies that pop up, but they're not obnoxious, and they only pop up occasionally and erratically. Well, if that happened, if the check engine light came on every time that happened in any automobile, any of today's automobile, the check engine light would stay all the time, on all the time. So it's called a threshold. There's a threshold of noisy bobbies or interruptions in the architecture of the electronics of the automobile, by which that computer says, that's a nit, that's a nit, now he's starting to get on my nerves. Wait a minute, we've got an evaporation leak here, we got a fuel leak here, we got a misfire. And I'll give you an example of that. A Ford, like a Ford V8, has typical bad coils. And folks, if you drive a F-150, you know, with a 5.4, you're going to put coils on it sooner or later. So Ford computer has a big threshold before the check engine light comes on. A Lexus may misfire with a bad coil 2,500 times and the check engine light comes on. A Ford will misfire 9,000 times and maybe even 10,000 times, and before the computer says, okay, all right, I see we do have a problem, hands up here. And an Audi or a Mercedes, when let's say you pulled a spark plug wire off and you had a cylinder that was misfiring, and the computer saw that. Well, if you pull the spark plug wire off and you're not firing, and the injector kept putting fuel in, you would get so much raw fuel in that cylinder that it would wash the cylinder down, and it would ruin and damage the piston just because you pulled the spark plug, or you had a bad plug, or you had a bad wire, or you had a bad coil. So here's what the computer does. The computer says, oh, wait a minute, we can't continue pouring fuel in that cylinder because there's no fire there. So it will kill that ignition coil. And you can put the new plug and a new wire and fix the problem and crank it up, and that engine will go poop, 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 because that cylinder is still dead until you clear the code, until you tell the computer, okay, you're healthy again, you can now turn that injector back on. Now, I know that's a lot of information, but I wanted you to be aware of what a certified technician can find in the architecture of your engine, and especially a dealer, because there's no way that you should have to continue to drive this car, Dean, with reduced power. And I guess let me ask you a question. How long does the reduced power stay on?
Maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, here's what I want you to do. The next time it stays on, and the service manager may have already told you this, but and I know that circumstances have to be just right. The dealer has to be open, so it's got to be daytime. It's got to be during the week, you know, Monday through Friday, what have you. The next time that, and it will happen. If it's happened once, it will happen again.
It's about once a week.
Yeah. Well, okay. So do your regular path, but when that light comes on, drive into the service shop. Do not turn that vehicle off.
Okay.
Do not. Even if you have to wait 10 minutes, park it and drive into the shop or the parking lot or whatever you have to do. Put it in park and set the brake and let that engine idle. And walk in and get someone, said, my car is doing, and the way you accomplish this is you establish a connection with a Bobby at the service shop of the dealership, or whatever, whoever you've talked to already, and you say, I'm going to come by the next time when it does this, but do not turn the vehicle off, because when you do, the head of the class says, well, we got a break here, let's start over again. Kind of like rebooting. You know where I'm going there?
Yeah.
Okay, you got it?
I got you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hey, thanks for your call.
All right, thank you.
So folks, there's a method to my madness, and that method is that not everything, not every flat tire has a bad tire or a hole in the tire, but every flat tire has no air in it. So the three things it can be is the valve stem, the wheel that leaks, or the rubber tire that leaks. But that's not true for an electronic system. More on that when I come back. Don't go away. In the service bay this week, an 05 Chevy Silverado. The truck was experiencing a front brake noise and a pull to the left when stopping. We performed a thorough inspection and found the front pads completely worn out on the driver's side. The passenger side looked to be okay, but we noticed a loose wheel bearing on that side. Why would the pads be worn on just one side? It was a seized driver's side brake caliper. So we replaced the pads and rotors on the front along with the driver's side caliper. Also replaced the passenger side wheel bearing. Our parts choice for the repair, Omnicraft. With today's complex vehicles, not every part works or works well. Quality, fit, and function is a belief system in my shop. Approved and backed by Ford Motor Company for most non-Ford and non-Lincoln vehicles, Omnicraft quality brake parts will help ensure vehicle reliability and longevity. Learn more about Omnicraft brakes and other Omnicraft parts at omnicraftautoparts.com. Omnicraft Auto Parts, backed by Ford. Being car care aware is important all year round, but winter is an especially critical time as harsher conditions can strain your automobile. Here are a few items to check, courtesy of the Car Care Council. Winter means shorter days and longer nights. It's a great time to make sure interior and exterior lights are working properly, and don't forget to make sure your headlights are properly aimed. This item is often overlooked. The best way to warm up your engine in the winter is to drive gently at the start. Make sure your ice scraper and snow brush are accessible, and replenish your emergency kit. Jumper cables, a flashlight, blankets, extra clothes, bottled water, non-perishable food, and a first aid kit with any medication that may be needed. It may seem like a lot, but better safe than sorry. For more great tips, videos, and recommended service schedules, visit carcare.org. And while you're there, order a free copy of the Car Care Guide for your glove compartment. That's carcare.org.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Telephone tip
from Geico Auto Insurance.
When calling Geico to switch your car insurance, you will not need acetaminophen, naproxen, indomethacin, ibuprofen, a cold compress, an on-call acupuncturist, or any other pain remedy. In 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more. If it were any more painless, you could do it in your sleep, which is theoretically possible since we offer complete 24-hour service. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
When you purchase the latest TV, tablet, or smartphone, don't forget to do the right thing with your old ones. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old devices as easy as buying new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find recycling tips, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Don't let your old tech tools clog your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Pardon me, I had to clear my throat there. Maybe I'm talking too much. You think? No, that's funny. That is funny. You ever heard a talk show host say that I'm talking too much? No, but the talk show host has heard that from a lot of people. You talk too much. So it's your turn. 227-2546. 888-227-2546. This segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic brought to you in part by Clarius. Clarius, the world's largest producer of automotive AGM batteries that are precision engineered to meet the electrical demands that are placed on today's vehicles. Navigation systems, entertainment systems, ABS motors, starter motors, all those computerized conveniences all start, no pun intended, at the battery. And that battery, when you replace your battery, you would do yourself a favor and your car a favor if you replace the original flooded type battery with an AGM. You can learn more about batteries at autobatteries.com. Write that down, autobatteries.com. You can learn how to install your own battery. You can learn how to not install your own battery. You can learn about separator plates. What's a separator plate? Who cares? People, you should care. I mean, you know, when you go to buy a product, quality is what you're paying for quality. And you're paying for convenience. You're paying for luxury. You're paying, and you need to get your money's worth. I mean, you know, you can buy a set of tires for $200, but they won't be, you know, they won't be Michelin. They won't be Goodyear. They'll still roll, you know. And if that's all you want to do, it just like, you know, you ought to put your key in your car. Here's a good example. Bobby, I don't care about cars. I really don't. I bought my car to go back and forth to work. Right. You bought your car. You're paying hard-earned money for a vehicle that enables you to go to work to make the money to buy that automobile and to live your life. So, fine, put gas in the car and turn the key. But one day, sooner than later, unless you maintain that automobile, when you get ready to go to work, you won't have a way to work. You'll have to depend on somebody else or some other form of transportation because your car will fail. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So therein lies the disparity. Therein lies, therein means what? Well, how much should you do with maintenance? How do you know about maintenance? You know, well, you tune into Bobby Likis Car Clinic and I'll share with you. I'll answer your car questions about maintenance. What is maintenance? I can tell you, the word maintenance actually is obsolete because maintenance is incomplete. And if you stop, let's say that you and I team up and we're going to do a survey. We're going to conduct a survey. We go to the mall. Now, you go with me now. We're at the mall. Let's say that we set up a kiosk, not outside, but in the mall. And the kiosk says, what do you, information about your car, or car information. So you say, well, I've never seen a car information kiosk at a mall. So you walk over and we ask you, you ask me a question, but I ask you, what is maintenance? So I would ask you, what is maintenance? And I will assure you, I sort of say 9 out of 10. I'm going to say 85 out of 100. Maybe 90 out of 100 people will say, well, a changing oil and filter in the engine. You know, I do that. Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's been a great car. People call me on a program, been a good car? Yeah, it's a great car. 150,000 miles, never had it in the shop. Really? Really? Why are you calling me? Well, it's in the shop now, and it's going to be $2,000 to fix it. I want to know if, you know, if you thought that was right, you know. I said, well, you just said it's got 150,000 miles. You never had it in the shop. Well, I've changed the oil and filter. So what? You brush your teeth. But occasionally you got to go to the dentist for a thorough cleaning and x-rays, right? So it is with your automobile. And that's why there's such a gap. Yeah, that's a good word, a gap. Actually, there's a crevasse between automobile, consumer, car owners, and automotive service shops. And whose fault is that? And I'm not here to fault anybody, so I'll fault my industry. My industry that says, oh, and here's the industry, OEMs. You know, buy this new Ford, the transmission fluid would go 150,000 miles. Really? 150,000 miles? How long is the guarantee on the transmission? 48,000. Oh, wait a minute. But you said the transmission fluid would go 150,000 miles. Right, well, it will. But you can only guarantee in the transmission 48,000 miles. That's right. Because chances are you're going to have problems after that. Or, oh, but wait. You can buy an extended warranty. And how much is that? $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. What's covered? The transmission. After you pay a deductible. Well, does that mean the fluid? Oh, yeah, you have to put new fluid in it. When? 150,000 miles. Well, the bottom line, folks, and I'm not dissing Ford here. I'm just saying manufacturers a lot of times will tell you what you want to hear. And the PR firms will promote what they think you want to hear, not what you need to hear. So you need to know this. If you don't service your car, it will fail. If you don't put brakes on your car or have them inspected and periodically, then you will end up not only buying brake pads, but you'll buy rotors as well. And not only will you have to buy tires, it may be that you'll have to buy another higher insurance premium after you wreck your car because you lose control because the tires are slick. Oh, I'm going to do this. Now, I'm not on your case about what condition your car's in. I'm just explaining to you that all machines must be maintained. And in order to maintain the machine, there are guidelines, and those guidelines are not there like that owner's manual in your glove box. It is not there it's there for a purpose. To help you better understand your automobile and to give you an idea of what to do when it happens. What happens when you break down? How to change a tire, or even if it does have a tire in it. It may not have a spare tire. It may not. So it really is so interesting. And if I sound like I'm preaching, heaven forbid, I'm not doing that at all. I'm just sharing with you the things that you should do. Change the fluids, change the brake fluids. And I say that because I do that. And I say this, and I say it very proudly. I drive a 2013 automobile that now has 67 plus thousand miles. And it's parked about 40 feet from where I sit, just outside the studio. And it is ready to go, and it needs nothing. It doesn't need anything. If I decide to go to California when I end the radio program today, I'll have to stop 300 miles from now and put another tank of fuel in it. That's how ready it is. Oil, tires, wiper blades, transmission fluid, differential fluid, power steering fluid. I mean, all those fluids are the lifeblood of my vehicle and the one that you drive. And therefore, you should take your car in for an inspection twice a year. And the inspection should include, among other things, an oil and filter change. Now notice, I didn't say take your car in for oil and filter. I said take your car for inspection, and while it's there, have them change the oil and filter. Do it the back way from what our industry has preached for the last umpteen years. Don't worry about changing the oil and filter. Worry about having someone look under the hood to make sure it's still under there. And all the stuff that's under there is still as it should be. And while they're there, change the oil and filter. And I will tell you, you should try it the next time you go in for an oil and filter change to a service shop. And I'm not talking about a fast in, fast out oil and filter because they know that's why you came there. Go to a service shop that performs all of the maintenance and all the repairs and all the pre-repairs on your automobile, a full service. There you go. Go to a full service shop, whether it's a dealership or independent, and drive up and say, I'm here to get my car inspected. And then don't say anything. Just watch the expression on the service advisor. Think about that word. What is a service advisor? A service advisor is the person you speak with when you take your car into a service shop that advises you as to what to do. What is a doctor when you go in to see the doctor? A health advisor. That's what a doctor does. He advises you on how to do, maintain health or fix whatever's wrong with you. He's an advisor, but he has to be qualified. So that's where the differential comes in. But again, I'm just trying to illustrate to you the gap in the service, the differential between you as a car owner consumer, which I am a car owner consumer, and a service shop that is in business to repair your automobile and or service your automobile. So again, when you go into a dealership or an independent service shop, just for grins, even if you have a window motor, let's say you have a power window motor that doesn't work, or a door lock that doesn't work. I mean, really, or let's say you just need wiper blades. I mean, think about it. You know, it rained last week. Now it's beautiful weather, so you forget about the blades. But you swore to yourself after the fourth day of rain, no rain, rain, no rain. The next time you're going to a service shop, you're going to you're going to have new blades put in. So when you take it in for something so menial, well, that's not minimal as far as that goes, because you got to have a clean windshield to see for safety. But when you take your car in, just trust me. Ask for, when you walk up, even if that's not why you went there, ask them, would you please give my car a bumper-to-bumper inspection, and prioritize what your findings, and give me that list. Oh, and while you're at it, would you put a set of wiper blades on? Your experience will be like no other experience you've ever had with a service provider. When I come back, I'll take your calls and get your take. Folks, recently a 99 Chevrolet Blazer came into the shop. The owner was having problems with hesitation upon acceleration. He'd already changed out several parts: spark plugs, wires, ignition coil, mass airflow sensor, fuel filter, and the air filter element. He even changed the thermostat and coolant temperature sensor. Still had the same problem after putting a lot of money in this car, and he was frustrated. We dug a little deeper, cleaned the throttle body, and checked for trouble codes. No codes. So we recommended Berryman B12 Chem Tool. Carbon deposits and dirty fuel injector nozzles are a common problem with drivability in late model engines. We also recommended a higher quality gasoline. The customer noticed improvement on the first day, and only a few days and a few hundred miles later, the problem was completely gone. Berryman B12 Chem Tool features HEST, Berryman's exclusive high-energy solvent technology. The result is a more complete combination of available chemical technologies. Drive to BerrymanProducts.com for more information. That's BerrymanProducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. Poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE, or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease, and she showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
We're a land of cynics. We don't believe anything anymore. You know why? Because we've been told we've won $1 million, that it's new and improved, that it slices and dices, that our favorite singer is still alive, that we'll be prosecuted if we cut off the tags, and of course that everything is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So when we hear the words customer service, we don't believe it. Travelocity isn't surprised if you're a little skeptical when they say they have excellent customer service, and that there's actually a pleasant face behind this website, a living, breathing person with a supercharged computer full of answers. Someone who's willing to help when you get lost, and most of all, someone that will actually pick up the phone when you call with a question or a concern. Customer service is just another example of how Travelocity puts you in control of travel. Chances are you'll never have to use it, but it's good to know it'll be there if you need it. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Let's go to Oklahoma and take a call from Jake. Jake, good morning and welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Just terrific. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Hey, so for Christmas, I decided I wanted to put a remote start on my wife's 2016 Toyota RAV4.
Okay.
And so starting to do my research, I called 4 different Toyota dealerships to get a price on it. And they range from $550 to $899.
Right.
All of them were certified Toyota, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, I called the dealership that I bought several vehicles from. It's Toyota. And the service rep told me, he said he came in right in the middle at $699. And he said, I will only install OEM remote start on your car, and how those other guys can do it so cheap is because they're putting on an aftermarket. And he said you run into a lot of problems when you install aftermarket, like disabling your anti-theft and other problems like that, and it doesn't communicate with the computer like it's supposed to. So he said I'll only install the OEM. And so my question is it worth spending an extra $150 to go with the OEM remote start, or is it okay with going with an aftermarket for a cheaper price?
OEM. And I'll say this, Jake, it's just a great timing. Your call is a great timing. This is Saturday. Last Wednesday, one of my service advisors came to me. Actually, it wasn't. It was a higher up. It was a manager, a main manager, came to me and he says, I've had requests to install remote starters. Do we want to do that? And my immediate answer was no. and so, but I didn't say no, because if you say no and don't give a why, then you're not educating somebody. And all that means is that they could take it 2 ways. They could take it like, well, he doesn't want to fool with that, or what's wrong with him? I'm just trying to offer a service here, and he doesn't want to offer the service. So I said, no, we don't. I said, and here's why. We do not and will not cut into the wiring of a vehicle, because when you cut into the wiring of a vehicle, you will cause damage unbeknownst to you at the time, but later on. And I say that because, and I'm sure the technicians listening right now, one of the most fascinating devices that I ever found was when they came out years ago with what was called, and I don't know if, Jake, you've ever seen one of these, called a Scotch lock. A Scotch lock is, imagine a yoke that you see on oxen, which is like in the middle of your fingers. Let's say you got 4 fingers I'm holding up here, and a collar. Thank you, Jonathan. A collar. So a Scotch lock is a plastic holder with a wraparound cover that's the size of your thumbnail, with a little aluminum blade in it, and you put the one wire that you want to connect to next to the wire that you want to connect to that wire, and you take a pair of pliers and you force them together, and by forcing the wire into a collar, it cuts through the insulation and cuts. It doesn't cut the wire because it's aluminum, but it does damage the wire. But regardless, it exposes that wire that you're connecting and the wire that was previously sealed by the material used to seal wires. It exposes it to the atmosphere. And over time, and this is especially true, I mean, how many calls have I had from people who had tail light problems, brake light problems, and, well, do you have a trailer towing? Yeah, I just put a trailer hitch on it a couple of years ago or 5 years ago, and you use Scotch locks. So, so the people that at the dealership do not have to cut any wires. What they have to do is they have to take, let's say you got, if you remember in the last hour, I talked about a 92-pin connector, and I unplugged it from the computer and plugged it back in. So let's say that you've got a device that controls the cruise control, let's say adding a cruise control or whatever device you're going to add. If the company makes a wiring assembly that allows you to unplug the existing connector factory and plug theirs in series, well, that means that what you have is an extension. So if that extension is plug and play, then I would endorse the aftermarket product if it's plug and play. But I can't tell you how many problems I've had when people and the worst invention I've ever seen in the world was a plug-in blade where you take a fuse and you plug this little speared aluminum blade into a hole so you could attach a wire to that fused plate. You know what I'm talking about? In other words, so if you have to invade the privacy or the security of a sealed system by cutting any wire, that should not be done. And that's
so
hard. Go ahead.
I need to ask him a few more questions and figure out how the remote start is to be installed.
That's right. And so I would say this: there are a lot of great aftermarket companies. I mean, I talk about one of our sponsors is Super Chips. And I talk about Super Chips. Super Chips, you don't even have to open the hood. You literally plug the tuner into the OBD port, and that tuner then connects with the car's a computer, the ECM, electronic control or powertrain control module, with a computer that runs the engine. And then it downloads the original factory tune, which is the mapping of the fuel and the torque and the timing, fuel and timing, which has to do with torque and horsepower and yada yada. And then it reprograms the unit, and it does this in 5 minutes. That's why I like the unit, and I've installed them. And if I had a Ford or a GM or a Chrysler or a Ram or a Jeep, I can any 96 and up, I would put a Super Chips. In fact, I was just looking yesterday at one for my Jag. I'm wanting to do something to my Jag now, and there's one, but it's $1,300, not from Super Chips, because there's not enough people with Jags that want to do this. But now I'm looking to do some modifications. But it has to be plug and play, and to that end, I've never liked the screen on my car. It's small, it's clunky, and it's 2013-ish, so it's not high tech. So it just so happens that last night or yesterday, I was looking for a bigger replacement screen, but my number one goal in my mind, it's got to be plug and play. If it's not plug and play, then I'm not going to install it. Now, that's not to say that if I had a Jeep and I wanted to put some bright spotlights on it, but I would go to the battery and I would hook straight from the battery terminal, and I would fuse that wire, and I would feed a relay, and that relay would feed the lights, and then I would have a switch, and I'd add a switch, And Jake, not to over answer, but here's one thing. A lot of people have called me and said, Bobby, what do you think about a catch can? I mean, every car, one of the major problems that we have with drivability is the oil contamination from the PCV system in the intake manifold of the engine. It's carbon. I call it black lung disease. And I mean, every engine has this. No matter what you drive, it has this, because all cars have a positive crankcase ventilation. So all of the yuck, and you know where I'm going here. So a catch can would take the vapors that go back into the mouth of the engine from the bowels of the engine, from the crankcase, and it would run it through a catch can through a bunch of like mirrors, where you walk into a fair when you got the mirrors where you don't know which one the way to walk. Well, that's what a trap is. That's what air filters do. Like a K&N filter, they have folds, so the air goes in, got to turn this way, turn that way, and turn. And every time that air turns, it rubs against the wall of the filter, and the filter traps the particles. So by the time the air makes its way through this maze, it's clean. That's how filters work. So if I said to you a catch can would be a great device because it would keep your engine cleaner, that would be true, except here's the caveat, and here's the same thing in my feelings, experiences as well, about a catch can. Who's going to put it on, and how they're going to run the wires, where they're going to run the hose, and when are they going to empty it, and how many times they're going to empty it, and who's going to maintain it. And for that reason, the very car that I drive has the noisiest engine of any other than diesel, has the noisiest gasoline engine. When I first fire it up in the morning, it hurts my ears at the of the timing chains, and it's been that way since new. It's the lousiest it's a great engine now, gas mileage, power, I love it. I love the car. But it is the noisiest engine of any new car that I know of, and it's been that way since day one. And it's a 5-liter V8 non-supercharged, normally aspirated engine manufactured by Ford for Jaguar. And this is not a Ford Jag, it's a Tata Motors Jag, but it still has the Ford manufactured engine. Noisiest engine in the world. So what I would like is to put an accumulator on it so that I've got 50 pounds or 60 pounds of pressurized oil, and when I turn the key on or push the start button, that will open up the floodgates and whoosh, and create oil pressure before my engine starts. But you know why I don't do it? Because I got to invade the arteries of the engine, and I have to run hoses from the engine to the fender well, and that's a major project. It may not be a major project, but if I did 100 of them, a certain percentage of them are going to leak. And if do-it-yourselfers installed 100 of them, 100,000 of them, then you're going to have a lot of leaks because you run a cable and you run a wire and you think it's okay, but you're not under the hood watching it while the engine's moving around and the car's moving around, and next thing you know, you got an oil leak. The next thing you know, you got a fire. And so that's a lot of information, but you asked my opinion, and through my experience, if anybody, in fact, I would talk to a shop and say, do you use Scotch locks? I chastised Tommy Bernardino, who's literally, when he put some LED lights on his Jeep, I chastised him for using Scotch locks. I said, well, what do you mean? I said, you cut those wires and you use heat shrink and you use solder, and you soldered those connections, and then you cover it and seal it with heat shrink. And if you don't do it that way, you're not doing it the right way. And how many people do you know would do that? How many people are anal enough to do that? Now, I tell you, an aircraft mechanic would do it, but an automotive mechanic, I doubt it. So that's why we have technicians now, and even my technician used Scotch locks on his lock, and I can't wait 6 months from now when he comes in. He says, man, the light's not working, and then he traces it out, and sure enough, one of those Scotch locks is corroded. It will happen. It does happen. So now, again, after saying all that, don't worry. There are plug-and-play aftermarket remote start kits, but before you buy, and so I guess the bottom line is, to be safe and for $150, go with a dealer. But even then, I would want to see the kit that the dealer installed. I want to see that it's got Toyota's brand on it. You see where I'm going there? In other words, does Toyota make a remote start? Look, go to the parts counter at any Toyota dealership. Do you have a remote starter kit? I can get you one. No. Is it a Toyota remote start kit? Well, we don't use those. We use Black Diamond. I mean, I just made that up, or we use Car Clinic remote starters. Now, hey, no. If you're gonna, if this technician at this Toyota store is gonna put a remote starter kit in your Toyota, you want it to come out of a Toyota box. Even if Toyota doesn't make it, it's just like you go to Toyota oil. I get the oil change. I want Ford oil because I drive a Ford. Ford doesn't make oil, and Toyota doesn't make oil. Whatever dealership is using, they're using parts made that meet and/or exceed manufacturer specifications. You got it?
Yep.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was great information there, and I shared with you a lot of years of failures and mistakes, and I can tell you it's hard to duplicate what the manufacturers do because they don't make one car. They make the 2020 Corvette. They make one of those every 5 minutes. That's amazing. Hey, Jake. Happy New Year. Thanks for your call.
Hey, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah, I was amazed at that, Jonathan. So here's Jay Leno talking to and they make the Corvette every 5 minutes, a new car. Unbelievable. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today. And remember, if you're like Rick here in Florida, or perhaps John in New York, and you've got a vehicle that's a non-Ford or a non-Lincoln, you make sure that you check out Omnicraft Auto Parts for your repair and maintenance. Omnicraft Auto Parts are for non-Ford vehicles, but OEM from Ford Motor Company. Take a quick tour at omnicraftautoparts.com. Until next time, I'm Bobby Likis. Likis, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Folks, we only partner with companies we believe in, like K-Seal, which is an excellent option for repairing a coolant leak, especially for older vehicles that may not be worth the cost to repair. But don't take our word for it. K-Seal was recently used to repair the block on a 1913 Type 22 Bugatti, the oldest running Bugatti in the U.S. with a value of approximately $2 million. K-Seal is available nationwide at parts stores like O'Reilly Auto Parts. Learn more about K-Seal at kseal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
Is your vehicle ready for the holiday road trip? O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you save on your oil change. Right now, get a $15 gift card after mail-in rebate when you buy 5 quarts of Castrol Edge Full Synthetic and a Wix filter for $33.99. Plus, earn double O Rewards points. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better prices every day.